Thank you to inviting us here to give this topic because we have been extremely nervous about this bug moving forward. Oh, I have to use this, right? And my name is Jennifer Phillips Russo. I work for Cornell University. I am the Cornell Viticulture Extension Specialist with the Lake Erie Regional Grape Program. I tried to use these inspirational photos to start to say that we're really glad to be here before we get into the dirty part of it all. So, I am here on behalf of the Lake Erie Regional Grape Program. And I want to give you a little background about our program because it is very unique in the extension world. We are basically a regional program with 5 counties and 2 states. And because of that, we have 2 land-grant universities as part of our team. So I'm the Cornell side of it, and we have other Cornell specialists as well. But then I have Megan Luke here with me, and she is the Penn State side of it. So we all have been working together since, well, not me nor Megan, but it was in 1992 when they established this agreement between Penn State and Cornell, which is really kind of cool if you think about it, because for the land grant, all of our industry stakeholders get all of that knowledge and research-based information from both of the universities. And we work very seamlessly across. So Penn State sees me as a Penn State employee and Cornell sees Megan as a Cornell employee as well. The majority of our region, we have, and I'm going to get it onto the next slide. We have 32,000 acres of grapes in our region. The majority of that is juice grapes. And out of that, it's usually a Concord juice grape for the juice grape industry. However, we also have wine grapes and hybrids in our region. So we do mostly juice and wine grape processing, and then our grower stakeholders make up all of our industry stakeholder members. We have been, because of the Cornell and PSU collaboration, we have been educating our growers on spotted lanternfly since before 2018 when I joined the team. They are very well vested. They know what the bug is. They know the biology. It's just not there yet. And there's a lot of anxiety and anticipation for when it comes. And the one thing that's different about our region, that all of the research that has been happening thus far, is that we are a highly mechanized region. Most of our stuff is done with mechanized harvesters. It's not hand harvesting. There's really not a lot of hand pruning. Everything is really much done with machines in our region. Oh, let me back this up because this was important to me. Hold on. So if you can see right here, I'm using the pointer. This area right in here is where our grape industry is. And you saw that Ontario is right across the way, and that we also have that population right now in Buffalo, New York. And then this is a map that I found just while we were talking about this yesterday of all of the rail that goes straight through our vineyards in Western New York. So out of the 32,000 acres of industry that we have in that area, that rail cuts straight through our grape growing. Oops, let me back that up, sorry. See this line right here? Straight through our vineyards. So the Concord industry is really big. About 81% of those 32,000 acres are Concords. I feel like I'm not paying attention to this side of the room because I was sitting over there as well. I hopefully don't blind any of you if I use this here. So 81% of the grapes grown are Concord, and then we also have hybrids and vinifera as well. So 32,000 acres in New York and in PA. We're the largest AVA east of the Rocky Mountains. More than double the rest of the grape acres in the eastern US combined. However, there has been some growth since that has happened. And it's mostly Concord for juice, wine, and table grape consumption. The industry is over 150 years old. So it's really enriched in our area and an economic driver for our region as well. And we have that unique climate that gives us the Northeast tender fruit production because of the buffers of those lakes. And the New York wine and grape industry started the decade contributing about $4.8 billion in economic activity. Here is all of the purple dots that you see over here are all of the vineyards that we have mapped in our area. And this is just the Lake Erie, but we also travel up onto Ontario Lake into the Niagara County area. Excuse me. So 80% of those grapes are grown for the juice market. However, Concord juice also makes up 40% of the grapes grown for New York and PA wine industry. If you talk to the wineries in our area, they will tell you that the Concord grape is the wine that keeps their lights on so that they can then work with the vinifera as well. So for the juice industry, 2/3 of the grapes are processed for juice, jam, and jelly. Concord competes in a national and international market. Market forces such as overproduction in other regions can impact Concord prices. And in the wine industry, 1/3 of the grapes are destined for the wine market. These are all we're talking about Concord. Concord is still the leading wine variety in the Eastern US. And wine grapes serve the local farm winery market and cannot absorb large-scale changes in production in the case of a spotted lanternfly infestation and what that would look like to our industry. I put all of our industry partners down here on the bottom to show that we are far-reaching between certified nurseries, juice processors, global wineries, and then a juice like wine juice distributor. So the Lake Erie AVA, the economic impact, there are $80 million in equipment and buildings, and this is just in our region alone, not considering the rest of PA or New York. $125 million in land, over $50 million in grower-owned processing facilities, over 1,500 vineyard juice processing and retail jobs, 30 million in farm gate sales, and 172 million in retail products. We're not a small industry there, and we are extremely nervous and anxious about when this bug gets here. I included this slide because a lot of the work and research that we do is in, because we're highly mechanized, variable rate and precision and digital ag. Dr. Terry Bates has been the lead on an SCRI project for that, just to show that there may be some sort of research that could go forward using precision and digital ag when it comes to spotted lanternfly. So as part of, I said our growers know a lot about, and they're very vested about the spotted lanternfly. However, because of where we are and because of the rail that goes through, I was trying to figure out how do we reach other people, the general population, so that they can also be vested in it. So because of Thank You New York Ag and Markets, they supported a grant to help me get some information out there about spotted lanternfly, and we created this PSA. So if you would click that link, it's also in English and in Spanish. If you would click the top one, please. The spotted lanternfly is a destructive invasive species that is spreading across New York State. They are a major threat to New York agriculture and could become a nuisance to homeowners and those who enjoy the outdoors. They don't bite humans or animals, but they do excrete a sticky substance that rains down to the area below, covering plants and surfaces. That can lead to mold growth and attract stinging insects and ants. The spotted lanternfly can't fly very well, but it is very good at hitchhiking. It is very important that you inspect your vehicle and belongings so you don't transport spotted lanternflies or their egg masses. The egg masses are laid September through November and can look like a dried splotch of mud. If you find a spotted lanternfly in New York State, please take a photo of it, collect it, squish it, and then report it at reportslf.com. Thank you. So thank you to some of the research that was here earlier in the marketing discussion about possibly getting that out on Hulu and Netflix, because I'm really interested in trying to do that. I appreciate that tip. So much is learned here, and not just the past 2 days, but the past 8 years of having this information. I'm really appreciative of it. Thank you. So this is to show you where we trap. We are monitoring for spotted lanternfly. There are no pheromone lures. We're not attracting anything. We're just basically following the rail to see if we are having any catches there. Again, it is a random tree, not random actually, they're all on Tree of Heaven, as you can see here, and we're just hoping not to find it, but we are definitely monitoring those rails through the system. Each one of those yellow dots that you're looking at is where one of our traps are. And if you remember that map I showed you a couple slides ago towards the beginning, they cut right through our vineyards. I don't remember, do you happen to remember what the mileage was? I think you mentioned it, how many miles the vineyards have? I'm catching you off guard. No, never mind. But they're all along the lake there. So I'm very proud of this video. So it was brought to our attention that maybe people don't know what mechanization looks like. So what type of research could we possibly do moving forward to help our growers out? So in some of the Southeast PA, when they do all of their harvest, it's a lot of hand harvest into lugs and carried into the estates. In ours, it's a lot of mechanized, either into 1-ton bins or 11-ton gondolas. And I will show you that process in just a second. None of it is done by hand, it's all done by machine. And we have no way of knowing how many of the spotted lanternfly will actually end up in the end product. It's a little glitchy in the beginning, and I apologize for that. So that also gives you an idea of the vastness of our vineyards. It is almost a 3-minute video, so I will talk through it just to entertain you. I know, I heard it through the grapevine was the music behind it. Maybe somebody can sing. Go, Megan. As you can see, it is shaking the vine. The harvester straddles a row, goes over, shakes with the bow rods the vine, and then it goes on the conveyor belt over into these bins. So there is not a lot of human interaction to be able to pick off those spotted lanternfly, which is why taint and toxicity is a huge concern for us. How many of these bugs can we actually get? How many of these bugs will reject a load of 11 tons of somebody's hard work? That is a gondola. I do feel like we need music. Yes, keep it going. Yes, that's Niagara. But the question was that Niagara? And it is, but also our vinifera is also harvested by machine. This is exactly why we're here today, and thank you. And I hope this discussion continues. So as of right now, there hasn't been any research onto this. And this isn't just our region in Western New York. California is highly mechanized. Oregon and Washington are highly Michigan is mechanized. So these are the bow rods to show you, and we slow it down. If there's a spotted lanternfly, yeah. Okay. Yes, 2 questions. Yes, Dana. We are going to talk about that. Thank you. But yeah, that is a huge concern. Oh, please. Please. You're all welcome. Come to the Cornell Lake Erie Research and Extension Laboratory in Portland, New York. No, this is why we want, thank you. These are all of the questions our growers are asking and our processors. So we were asked to show, thank you for the people who all contributed to the video so we could splice that together. And thank you for the music addition. I really appreciate that. So we were asked to actually show you what mechanized harvest looks like and the problems that could arise from that. And then also bring together some of our processing members here to have them discuss their concerns. We have a juice processor, we have a wine processor, and then we also have a certified nursery. Then they're all going to give a little presentation as well. And by the way, just to kind of hit home as to how important that is, it took us over 5 hours to drive here, and these processors took time out of their day just to make this trip, because thank you so much for that. I really like to stand up for our industry. So I really, really appreciate that. So in the spirit of collaboration, I did the first half of it, so I'm not going to have my PSU counterpart, Megan Luke, stand up. We have been doing this since 2018 and listening to our growers and writing down their concerns. And now it's our chance to get it all in front of you to see what their concerns are. So Megan's going to tell you our grower concerns. It's the green button.
Okay, do they come up one at a time or just all of them? One at a time. Okay, great. So thank you very much for the invitation. As Jennifer mentioned, it's really great to have an opportunity to stand in front of so many people that are impactful in our industry. and are so interested in hearing about our concerns. As Jennifer went over the overview of the industry, and some of our wonderful industry representatives will speak to their concerns, I get to kind of have the emotional appeal of all of this. So the idea here was to kind of give folks that may not have the opportunity to work directly with grower clients or work directly in the field, to see what sort of questions and concerns those people have that are anticipating, expecting lanternfly in the near future, and what is really going to be meaningful to them in terms of regulations, in terms of support, and just really what sort of clarifications would be helpful to alleviate some of that anxiety that they're facing right now. This one's already been stated, so if we were playing like Family Feud, someone would get the top points there. How many SLF will reject a bulk harvested load? This is a question that's on everybody's mind. Really, we don't have that data yet, and so we're looking forward to having that soon. I know there are some Penn State researchers, of course, that are already working on this, so we're very anxiously anticipating some of that data. What an actual threshold looks like. Obviously, these economic thresholds, my background is heavily in IPM. Knowing what those action and economic thresholds are is going to be really, really meaningful in terms of if this is something we're living with for the rest of our natural lives and careers, you know, what does that look like? Where is my treatment and action threshold? This is the big one, right? We straddle a state line. We have growers that not only grow in 2 states, have applicator licenses in 2 states, but that also share equipment across state lines. This is a very common thing, especially as we're moving from that smaller scale harvest in the 1-ton bins into the gondolas. That's a very high expense for a lot of growers, especially in juice grapes where the profitability margins are much smaller. So there's a lot more situations where folks are working together to share this. So what does that look like when we're talking about moving equipment and delivering to processors that may be in a different state?
It's below you.
Oh, it's-
I guess. I don't know why I disappeared.
What's happening?
And that's all we have, folks.
Mic drop. Yeah. Oh, now I have to sing. What? Oh, okay. Thank you. Do I have to do something to make it? Okay, okay. Just keep going, just keep going. Okay, so, well, I have to be able to see it too. I don't remember the whole list.
The next one was how many additional sprays?
Yeah. How many post-harvest sprays are going to be required? So as of right now, very little management happens in our vineyards once harvest has been accomplished. So this is a completely new cost. In many cases, because we do put on several sprays throughout the season, there is opportunity to manage lanternfly in the earlier stages alongside some other pests, except in this case where we have to do something post-harvest. That's going to be a brand new economic and labor expense. Oh, I can see it again. And so in that particular case, how many additional sprays can our margins handle? So when you're talking about juice grapes, when you're talking about an expansion of an industry to include Washington State, and more acreage in grapes, you know, obviously that with simple economics, we're looking at lower cost or lower price payout per ton. So what's going to happen to that if we're putting on more sprays? How soon do we lose profitability altogether for the growers? Mechanical harvesting issues with SLF infestations. So again, that's just kind of comes back to, are there going to be any other issues, anything with the equipment, having to look for egg masses and things like that. Toxicity and taint, obviously, we've already mentioned that. Is there the possibility of using mating disruptors or pheromone traps? A lot of folks are looking for other alternatives to putting in these late season sprays. We only have one chemistry right now in our list that we can use up to 1 day before harvest, according to processor standards. So we are very limited in some of the chemistries that we can use late in the season. So what else can we use? What other options are there for late season infestations? What is the impact of derelict vineyards? We do, of course, we have a very long established industry, you know, we have some farms that have been in families for 6 or 7 generations. So we do have an instance of vineyards that are no longer managed. Plus we have a lot of woodlots, railroad properties, things like that, that either we don't have the ability to manage legally, or that just simply isn't managed because of neglect or the inability financially to do so. The impact of rail traffic through infested areas, of course, that's a big one, especially, like I said, a lot of our properties directly border the railroad. Are we going to be allowed to treat or trap in those areas? What are the legalities? I mean, you can stand in some vineyards and throw a stone and hit the railroad tracks. So it's right there. What is that going to look like in the long term? And what are our, you know, rights and abilities to do management in those zones? Protections like insurance. What's crop insurance? Since it's already can be challenging to insure a specialty crop. What does the USDA standards look like for economic losses due to lanternfly? That's a question we get a lot. What level of infestation, what level of damage is going to allow people to consider those losses? And what is the potential for disease spread through vectoring? We've already had some speculative concerns around crown gall, as well as some other diseases, you know, with glassy wing sharpshooter in California. Pierce's disease, there was a lot of issues there. So there's a lot of concerns in that realm as well. So this is just kind of a general overview, like I was saying, just to give you kind of a view into the minds of our growers who are waiting for this pest, where it's a 1 to 2 counties away on every side of us. And then we have a lake. So it's there, it's going to be there. It's kind of unavoidable at this point, unless we come up with some fantastic new ideas like the, you know, parasitoid and it just wipes it all out everywhere. That'd be great. But anyway, this is kind of where we're at. And, you know, and we really appreciate all of the industry folks, all of the regulatory folks in the audience today, taking the time to listen and to laugh at a couple of my corny jokes, and to just have the opportunity to present on behalf of our growers, who really are, you know, the lifeblood of our program. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Jen, and she's going to introduce some of our industry folks. Thank you.
So our first presenter that I'm going to introduce is Abram Rack, and Abram Rack comes to us from AA Vineyards, and I'll let him tell you about AA Vineyards and all of the implications that could possibly be coming once this invasive gets to us. Abe, it's this button and then this one if you want to point.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, for having me. As she said, I'm Abram Rack from AA Vineyards. We're in Fredonia, New York. We're a family-owned grapevine nursery. I myself is a 3rd generation, and I work with my brother and my parents. We produce young grapevines that look like this in the field. We plant them in May and harvest them in October, November, and then process them throughout the winter and ship them to all 50 states. So we produce about 4 million vines a year, including berries such as raspberries, blackberries, currants, gojies. We do about $5 to $10 million in business a year. So we're kind of concerned on what's going to happen when we're starting to ship these, if we are in a quarantine zone. Obviously, like I said, our market is very wide reaching all across the country. So, you know, things that we want to know, what are the treatments that we're going to have to do? Are we going to have to treat them? How is the spotter and lanternfly going to affect our product? Is it going to you know, hurt our product as it's growing, because it's only growing for 1 season? So if we have an infestation, is that going to affect our product? And let's see, and then what regulations there's going to be. So obviously, like I said, we're dealing with a lot of states. So to have kind of each state having different rules isn't gonna work. So to see like is there a standardized practice for the shipment of plant material in a quarantine zone? And then also, the other part of our business is we are a fruit producer. So we have, we grow Concords, but then also up to 150 varieties that we use for propagation material. And then that fruit is harvested and sold in 4 or 5 different states. And so some of the processes are going to talk to you about some of their concerns, but like I said, we're shipping. If we're coming from a quarantine zone and going to somewhere, what are our restrictions going to be? So next will be
Cindy, I think.
Cindy Hanlon from E&J Gallo. Green button, yep.
Hi, I'm Cindy from E&J Gallo. We are the Canandaigua Winery in the Finger Lakes region in New York State. We process and buy fruit from Lake Erie, which also goes not only in New York State, but we also go into PA and we buy fruit from the Finger Lakes. Family-owned business, but we are global. So we ship not only in all 50 states, but into the UK and Europe and China and anywhere else, a lot of places. On site in Canandaigua, which is in the Finger Lakes region, we have 16 million gallons of cooperage. We process roughly 20 to 30,000 tons of grapes every season. We call it crush versus harvest because we don't actually have our own vineyards. We're buying fruit from the Lake Erie region, which encompasses, again, New York State and into PA. And we also purchase from the Finger Lakes area. So we're covering, what did you say? You have 32,000 acres, and we have a roughly 10,000 acres as regions. So we're purchasing grapes from anywhere. We're not purchasing from 42,000, but we can tap into 42,000 acres of grapes that could potentially be infected with spotted lanternfly. Just due to the sheer volume of what we bring in, everything we bring in, again, is mechanized. So I think that's a key point to take home right now from our region is we are mechanized and we can't pick out every one of those little beauties out of our grapes.
They're so pretty.
They are so pretty. From the Lake Erie region, we do purchase roughly 8,000 to 10,000 tons of fruit, and that is across 15 or more varieties, not just Concord. Our primary target and purchase is of the Concord grape, but we do buy hybrids, and we typically don't buy any vinifera's, but we do buy the hybrid grapes as well as Concords and other natives. So from that region, it's roughly 2.5 million gallons of liquid. And if we aren't allowed to bring in fruit, or there are situations from protocol that are going to impact how we get that fruit to our processing site in a timely manner, that means we're going to need to process our fruit in an already quarantined region. And that's just going to be an additional cost for us because now we're going to have to transport that roughly 2.5 million gallons of juice back to our site so that we can make wine out of it. Our site alone on the East Coast, we produce roughly 5 to 6 million cases. And that covers just in Canandaigua, not Gallo as a global company, but just in the East Coast Canandaigua site, we make 12 brands and over 60 SKUs of wine. So again, we ship to 50 states and roughly 7 countries just out of our location. So again, East Coast, that's not counting when you take Gallo as a whole. California, almost all mechanized for what's done out there. except for, you know, Napa and specialty wines like Orange Swift. Washington State, Oregon, Gallo has a presence in all of those areas in terms of buying and purchasing fruit. So when our little lovely makes it to the West Coast, it's going to impact not only our 42,000 acres, but a whole coast. So it's definitely a concern for Gallo as a company and as a grape industry and a wine industry. So for Canandaigua specifically, being East Coast and the Lake Erie, and primarily using the Lake Erie region, we have a couple concerns, and these will definitely roll into our West Coast partners. But what is the impact? Highly mechanized. What's the impact of spotted lanternfly getting into the grapes before they're delivered to our site? We have, you know, a 4-hour turn to bring 25 tons to our site. So are we picking up spotted lanternfly on the way because they smell that delicious Concord as they're driving down the highway? Are they sitting on the rim of the bin? Are they swimming in the juice? Because as you know, grapes on grapes, it's making juice by the time it gets to us. So because there's no way to pick that out, again, Concord, large canopies, right? So no one can see that, and no one's monitoring what is coming off of the harvester and going into the bin. How many spotted lanternfly is going to impact our wine, our finished product, our juice? Is there taint? Is there aromas that are off-putting? We don't know. There's right now, I did a rabbit hole search and found little to no research that has been completed as of yet regarding the impacts of spotted lanternfly in an end product. Love all of the research that is being done in the last 10 years over how it moves, what the life cycles, how do we stop it? Because that's is probably more important. But also in terms of when the grapes do get to our site, there's a couple of things that go along with that. There's the transportation of getting that fruit. So if PA is quarantined in the Lake Erie region, because we have Lake Erie, PA and Lake Erie, New York, in terms of Lake or Erie counties, and Erie County, PA is quarantined, how, again, timelines for crush, how are we getting that fruit to us? Who's inspecting it? What are the protocols? We don't know that right now. And when you're talking 8 to 12,000 ton of fruit trying to come out of a possibly quarantined area into maybe not a quarantined area yet, and you have a 12-hour window to make that happen, what does that look like? So that's definitely a concern for us. The other concern is kind of going back to Megan's point of we have farms that are small mom and pop, right? And they call Joey down the street because he has the harvester, and Joey comes over and he harvests their blocks. And then he goes down the street because Bobby also doesn't have a harvester because he's also a one-man show. He harvests his blocks. And then he goes back and he harvests his own because he likes to harvest at dusk and not at early morning. It's all the same variety, but it's in 2 different counties. One county is quarantined and the other is not. How do we clean that harvester? What's the protocol to that? What's the cross contamination? Are we bringing that spotted lanternfly from Bobby's to Joey's? Nobody knows because we can't watch it because the canopy is too big because we're mechanized. All great things because we need to do that because the cost for the varieties that we bring in is on the lower margin than the vinifera's, right? So we have to be mechanized. And then the last part from the Canandaigua winery is what do we do with the pumice? What do we do with the waste, right? So from the smaller wineries in the estates, I did a lot of reading in it. compost it, get the temperature up, spread it back in your vineyards. When you're processing 650 ton a day, 700 a day, 400 a day, whatever that is, what are you doing with all of that pumice? You know, we could be filling up a dump truck of pumice in a half hour or 15 minutes. So we have rakies that are going in there that don't go through any process. They just come out the crusher and they go into a dump truck. And then we have other pieces of that that will go through the whole process of going through the press. Are they going to survive in there? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Also with mechanization, there's a lot of times where you're going to see the MOG that's coming in is going to be, you might have a random cordon in there. It happens. I mean, during harvest, there's not probably going to be any egg mass on there, but you don't know. We don't know that, right? So it comes out, it ends up in the dump truck, and we go in. However, we're supposed to dispose of that at this point, because now we're partial quarantine, not quarantine. What does that look like? So we have a lot of questions from an East Coast processing site, and a lot of international implications, because our product is not only national, but it's international. I think I hit it all.
Nice job, thank you.
I would just like to add, because I don't think that we touched it, at least I know I didn't on the video, is we told you that we bulk harvest things from these harvesters. When it goes to the processor, let it be juice or let it be gallo, that is just dumped into, it's not like it goes on a sorting and people can pick things off. It's all just dumped into a big vat and then processed into its tanks. Yeah. Do you? Fantastic. Evan is next. So Evan Fritzke. No. Evan is next, and he is our contingency. He was here from National Grape, which is the grower cooperator that is associated with Welch's. Oh yeah, so they're asking about when harvest occurs. I'm hearing that go through. So there is the possibility of egg masses or eggs getting knocked off, because we have harvested up until November 10th in the past.
We went to November 6th this year.
This is move forward and this is pointing.
So, hello, everybody. I'm Evan Fritzke.
You're a tall one.
I'm here with the National Grape Co-op and representing Welch's as well. So, National, the Grape Cooperative, is the agricultural cooperative that owns Welch's. Every time you buy a Welch's product, you're putting money into the pockets of about 600 farmers and their families, not some guy. So we like to make a point of it and be proud that we're enriching our community, and that community ranges from the Finger Lakes in New York all the way out to the state of Washington. So between the Finger Lakes, Lake Ontario, Lake Erie in New York, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, we also have folks on Lake Michigan in Michigan, and then we have folks in Washington as well. So altogether, that comes to about 34,000 acres of Concord and Niagara grapes. It's mostly Concord. We have a little bit of Niagara additionally, but our main concern is Concord. They don't get treated significantly differently. And we have 4 processing plants that process not quite 300,000 tons of grapes a year. So if you think about how many lanternflies could fit into a truckload of grapes, we're going to end up with a lot of them in there. So we've got a little map here of where we are. And so a lot of our grapes are located on the sort of lake mediated climate that we have at the Great Lakes, whether that's on Lake Michigan or Lake Erie or the Finger Lakes. And so they've got very similar climate and harvest capabilities. Their management styles are pretty similar, where Washington is a lot different from us. Our juice from the east and our juice from the west are different. So in Washington, it's all irrigated agriculture, and they don't have the acidity that we do here in the East. So we've got that video again, because I like the part where it slows down. And the big question is that we don't know what's going to happen when we run a mechanical harvester through there. That we don't know if spotted lanternfly are going to come off the vine. We don't know when they're going to come off the vine. We don't know if we can do something to try and limit the number that get into the bins. There's been a lot of discussion about, is there a way to kind of scare them off first, blow them away, something? Because we can't really foresee a situation where we don't drive trucks into the plants that are full of grapes and lanternfly. So there's also a lot of processing concerns, that we have a lot of equipment that moves in and out, whether that's trucks, harvesters, tractors, whatever it is, that those are all potential points for hitchhiking and cross-contamination. But another concern of that is that once they get there, we have a inspection where we inspect for quality and we inspect for defects. I've been asked the question a number of times, what's your plan for when the spotted lanternflies show up in inspection? You know, how would you grade it? And at the moment, we're limited to the USDA standard, where if there are more than X grams of spotted lanternfly, we have to send them away. But that means that there are spotted lanternfly in there. And we don't know if we should be taking it more seriously. We don't know if there should be a lower threshold, a higher threshold, if it demands a further resampling. And so some of those concerns are rooted in the taint and toxicity question. We're different from a lot of the concerns that processors have, because a lot of them are making wine and so go through fermentation, where we're pasteurizing our grape juice and then don't ferment. So we don't know if that makes a difference either. There's also the question of harvest efficiency. I mentioned that it was nearly 300,000 tons in a year. At a single location, we could probably do 2,500 tons in a day, or about a truck every 10 minutes. So if we've got to get a truck out of the plant every 10 minutes, we don't have a lot of time to look for spotted lanternfly, or time to slow down to make decisions or resample or anything like that. And for every truck that we miss in a day, it adds on time to the end of harvest, which extends our harvest date, which means we end up harvesting into November, which makes all of the farmers very cranky. We got snowed on this year, and that stopped everybody dead in their tracks. Luckily, nothing froze, but it has happened before. If we get to the point where we're dragging out our harvest season too late in the year, we'll freeze and lose everything on the vine. And then that's it. It's game over. So we're hoping to not have that happen. We'd love to, but I don't think we could. And then additionally, we run the risk of cross-contamination, as has been brought up, that we move across counties, across state lines, that from a single processing location, you might get grapes from vineyards 100-mile radius. So you could have people from the Finger Lakes, people from Ohio, people from Lake Ontario, all exchanging potential spotted lanternfly. And so I was asked to do a short mention on the economic impact. It's difficult to estimate based on kind of our lack of knowledge. We don't know what the impact is going to be like in the short term, whether it's harvest efficiency or whether it's reduced crop size. And there are also issues with juice viability. If we find out that maybe our threshold was too low initially and we got through inspection and said, this should be fine, we haven't seen any problems. But as we get through pasteurization and the tanks settle and we find out that the juice quality isn't up to spec, we could end up throwing a whole lot of it out. Some of our tanks are as big as 750,000 gallons. So you don't want to have that all in one tank. And then there are long-term impacts as well, as far as vine health, whether that means it's a reduction in vine size and crop load, or if there are other unforeseen impacts. I mentioned replacing vines as well. I know that there are a lot of unknowns about when, how should you do it, what you can do, but maybe on the bright side, Concord growers don't have to buy and plant new vines. We can bury a shoot and have it grow a new one. So maybe there's some upside to our situation.
You raise sunshine.
Yeah, look at me.
Goes on a high note.
Yeah. So there we go. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen. I'll hand it back over to Jen.